Obviously, I know always have known that abortion is like a hot button political issue. Um, but coming from a medical perspective, especially when you start thinking about how similar it would be to miscarriage management, it was surprising to me that it was just not discussed. And in medical school, there was one resident that I had asked about it, and they said, "Don't ask, don't ask about it. Like we don't talk about it. We don't really do that here." Kind of taken in a very like matter of fact, accepting way. It leaves out a huge aspect of care because it's about options. It's about, having the right to choose what's happening with your own body. So if you aren't even learning that this is a choice, how are you then going to learn how to counsel patients that they may have a choice? The message is simple, that it's wrong, that it's uncommon, that it's something nobody would ever do unless, they had, terrible circumstances, that it's a completely wrong thing to do, which is a terrible message. So I was looking for a full-time position in family medicine, 4 days a week, and I found a clinic that was part of a larger hospital kind of entity, and they were hiring and they wanted to interview me, and I thought it looked actually really great. And at that point, I knew that I wanted to do abortion care, and I already had something sort of set up with that. So in my first interview, I put it out there. I want to be able to provide that 1 day per week. Is that going to be an issue? And everyone in that first interview was actually very receptive. Nobody seemed to take offense. Nobody hit the stop button on me. And they said, yeah, that shouldn't be an issue as long as it's a separate clinic. We don't see any reason that should be a problem. So I was thrilled. I signed a contract with them and we're going back and forth, many, many emails providing many, many documents. It's, a month or two into this situation. And then after all of that was done, I had received a call from somebody that had interviewed me, the clinic director, and he sort of inquired if I was still planning to do this other work in abortion care. And I stated very clearly that yes, that was always my intention, and that has not changed. Word had got out that, and it ran up the flagpole a little bit to some higher level executives that were uncomfortable with me providing that care. Ultimately, they expressed concern about what if people in my clinic found out that I worked in this other clinic? What if protesters found out and came to the family medicine clinic? The message was clear that it was not going to be okay. And my message to them was clear, that I didn't want to work somewhere that would not accept that. Maybe in retrospect, I could have pursued, since they were essentially discriminating against me for providing this other care. But I think in the moment and at the time, I just knew that I didn't want to be there if that was the situation. When you go into any field of medicine, you don't think that you should be worried about whether the legitimate care that you're trained to provide is going to send you to jail somewhere or have your license revoked. And it wasn't in just those first few days when the decision came out. It's ongoing. State laws are forever changing, flip-flopping back and forth. And at the heart of it all are these patients that need care. It's extremely confusing, and you're kind of working in fear some days because I don't want to do anything wrong. I don't want to do anything illegal. But sometimes it feels like we have to tailor our counseling or our instructions and guidance through a legal lens. And that legal lens changes from each state where each patient is coming from. So it makes it very, very difficult. You don't want to put them in any position that they might, have consequences and back in their home state, but you also want to provide the best care that you can. The fact that if I don't do this, it's going to be harder for them to find this somewhere else. That's what keeps me going.